For this sketchbook assignment, we're going to be using a simple image of a hand to analyze and think about planes. So the first thing is you need to print out both copies of the hand image that I prepared for you. One has a grid on it, one doesn't. Yours is going to have a boundary box grid on it to make things easier when you cut it out. So you're going to cut out the one that has the grid on it and glue it into your sketchbook. If you're using liquid glue, watch what I do here. I have 2 pieces of napkin. I'm going to use one napkin to smooth out the glue. I'm going to place it into my sketchbook and then use the other napkin to basically like burnish down the image into my sketchpad. So you're going to do that on the left side of the page. The purpose of using the image with the grid is that we're going to now recreate a grid that's a 1:2 ratio in your sketchpad. Now you'll see that with my first marks, what I'm doing is I'm lining my ruler up right along the edge of the sketchbook. It's not actually lined up with the physical edge, but I'm visually lining up the ruler with the edge, and I'm checking the distance between my ruler to the edge of the paper at both the top and bottom of my ruler where I'm making my marks. So my box is going to be 5 by 6. So there you see me making my 2 marks. Anytime you ever measure anything, and it's absolutely imperative that you use more than 1 mark when you make your measurement. Don't make 1 mark and then try to line up your ruler and make a straight line. It's not going to work. You need to have at least 2 marks to line up. That will help ensure accuracy in your line that you create, and you need to have accuracy in the grid you're going to do if you want this sketchbook assignment to be successful. So now you'll see that I'm lining up my ruler with the straight line that I made for my bottom edge. I'm going to go through and I'm going to make the measurement that I need by subtracting a total of 1.5 inches from the width of the page to get my 10-inch box. So now I have my 2 10-inch measurements at the bottom. I'm going to go up and do the same exact thing at the top. On the left side, I subtract 1/2 inch, and on the right side, I subtract 1/2 inch. So that's going to give me my 10-inch by 6-inch rectangle. I'm going to go through and connect those lines. And after connecting those lines, I'm then going to draw my interior grid. The grid size of the lines on the handout is 1 inch by 1 inch. So we're going to do a 2 inch by 2 inch grid in your sketchbook. Again, you need to make sure that your grid is made from accurate and straight lines, and that's something that I will be evaluating your sketchbook assignment on. If your lines are crooked and all over the place, you're actually going to be gluing paper on top of your lines, but you're not going to erase your lines on the bottom and other areas. So I'm going to see where they're not straight. So you need to make sure that your lines are accurate in their verticality and their horizontal direction. So he's going to go through and you're going to make a 2 inch by 2 inch grid in your sketchbook. So here's my grid. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to visually make myself familiar with the information that is in each part of my grid. So I'm just mapping my way through right now before I do my gesture drawing. And I want you to begin with a gesture drawing rather than trying to immediately start to draw hard edge contour line drawing of the hand grid by grid. With everything that we've already done, you've heard me say again and again, you need that foundational drawing, that drawing that's going to give you something to work into. And you'll see as I'm sketching my gesture drawing that I'm thinking about exterior edge, but you'll see me move around to interior stuff as well. And so I'm just working my way through the hand. Now I am using the grid as a gauge. I'm looking at where these edges do need to coincide with the grid itself, but I'm also trying to gesture through and make sure that everything is going to be, somewhat accurate with my gesture drawing. You may ask again, why would you start with this if you're going to correct it and make changes? Well, it just gives you that thing to work into, and so you have a good strong foundation to start your work with. So you're going to start off by doing your gesture drawing and then go through and correct it. So you can see here now that I've transferred the contours of the hand grid by grid to my page. Also, what I've transferred are the contours of each of the 5 isolated values that I prepared for you on the provided image. I have labeled each value with a number, with 1 being black and 5 being white. So I have 5 values that are evident in the image that I printed out. Now I'm going to lay over some tracing paper, and I'm going to provide you with the tracing paper. So I'm going to lay the tracing paper over, and I'm going to tape it down so it doesn't move. One of the things you're going to notice is that during all this transfer processing that you're doing, you are going to get some changes in the shapes you transfer because the transfer paper is going to stretch. To try to eliminate that, hold it tight in your hand and it's kind of like pull on it to try to stop it from shifting and stretching too much underneath the pressure of your pen. So you're going to go through and you're going to redraw all of the contours of each individual value. Don't try to put all the values on one sheet. Isolate them value by value, and that will make things easier when you go to transfer to your grayscale paper. So here I've transferred my values and isolated them onto the tracing paper. And what I'm going to do now is to transfer them to the black colored paper. So I'm just going to take a regular ballpoint pen and I'm going to place my black colored paper underneath, and then I'm going to just, with some pressure, redraw the contours of the isolated value with the ballpoint pen, and that's going to create an indented line in the surface of the black paper that I can then cut out. So I've transferred everything, and I know that you don't have cutting mats. If you do have a cutting mat, then the cutting mat would be the perfect thing to use for this with your blade. But since you probably don't have one, then what you can use is the back of your newsprint pad or the back of your charcoal pad. And as long as you don't push too hard with the blade, then it will cut pretty smoothly. So you're going to go ahead now and cut out your shapes that you transferred, being careful to cut along the indented line as accurately as possible. So once you've cut out everything, you're going to glue it down. I'm going to lay a piece of tracing paper down, or you can put down newsprint, doesn't matter. Wax paper works really, really great for this. I'm going to put my glue on the back, and again, you can see, I think if you have a glue stick, it's going to be way easier. So I'm going to use my paper towel like I did before, spread around the glue, making sure that hopefully I'm getting glue, covering all the edges, whatever. And you'll see that I'm holding the piece down so I don't move it through the glue that's being spread around it. Then I'm going to take my piece and glue it to my page. And again, when I glue it, I'm going to use that clean paper towel to burnish it down to the paper and try to get it to sit down there. I wrestled with mine for a minute, but this paper was rolled, and so it was curly, so I don't think you'll have that problem because your paper's in the pad. So smooth it all down, put some glue underneath parts that don't stick, make sure it all sticks down. You take the time to reposition it if you've put it down there incorrectly. And once you glue down your first piece, you're just going to go ahead and glue down the other ones. So now I'm going to go ahead and just show you how I would want you to do the second value. Everything's glued down. I'm going to put my tracing paper down. The big difference here is that instead of just tracing the contours that I drew into my page, I'm actually going to lock my pen against the actual edge of the other, like the black paper, and use that edge of the black paper as my guide. That's really going to help me to make sure that the value that I cut out for the next layer is going to fit in there pretty well. Again, you're going to get some stretching and things like that during the transferring. So just be cautious and take your time and try to get things as accurate as you can. You can think of this kind of like a jigsaw puzzle, right? Where all these pieces need to fit together. So I'm just going to go through and transfer those contours now. Here's the first piece of the second value glued down. I just used whatever gray paper I had available. You actually have a much wider range, so you'll have a darker value than that. So after gluing down one value all the way through, then I'm going to go through and glue down all the rest. Anywhere where you have anywhere where the values don't meet, like there's a couple spots you can see where there's white poking through there, just go ahead and cut small slivers and glue them down to cover that up.